So Anika, maybe I'll just let you start because you know Tom so well. I think you did an introduction already in the morning. And we can just like this is the second part of the conversation. So you can start talking a little bit about how you get to know Tom and how did you start to work on shows together. And then we just dive in.
Tom, do we want to start the whole thing with the beginning when we start speaking?
When we start again?
Yeah, maybe, or no?
I thought I was starting now. I can't start it again now. It's like a trap.
Okay, great. Then we just start.
Yeah, I'll take it slow.
Okay. So hi, hi Tom. Nice to see you again online playing your game we worked on together. Yeah,
my name is
gone
back in time. It's like it's back in lockdown when we were doing this the first time around.
Exactly, we've done it exactly 2 years ago. No, we launched it on
crazy.
August 15th. No, in 2020.
That's actually insane.
Today is August 15th.
That's crazy. It's the 2-year anniversary. Yeah, wow.
Amazing. Great. Yeah, I'm a writer and curator, and that's also how we met. Interestingly enough, I think at a party, and then the next day you came to an opening of mine because I curated a show in an internet cafe, and you just came and we started talking, and from then we started working together. Because you're a hacker coder, you build video games, you build physical art with technology using AI. You're interested in how technology shapes today's society. And you were a magician. I don't know if you still are a magician. Probably yes, because I think one doesn't unlearn that. You've been a TED Talk speaker. You are still a TED Talk speaker, and now you're the you're the mastermind or CEO of one of the most popular virtual worlds, also including NFTs and many PFP projects. And this is your solo show, Exercise in Hopeless Nostalgia, the World Wide Web. And yeah, nice to see you playing it again.
Good to see you. Yeah, it's funny when I play it. I like this game so much more than the one I have right now. No, I'm just kidding. I love it so much. It has this like real charm to it. It's
But how did you get started? I mean, with coding, and then how did you become an artist? I mean, how did
it was
that?
Funny because the magic, like I was coding when I was young, and I used to make like I made my first video game when I was like 13 or 14, but I wasn't really coding like very well. I wasn't very good at coding. I was a bit more creative on the creative side. And then when I started to become a magician, I started to teach myself to program when I was like 23. And then I built a video game, and I just taught myself on YouTube. I think how a lot of programmers teach themselves actually is just online. And then kind of after I did the magic, I one day I spent like 7 years doing magic, but it was like technology magic. And then I just realized that I was kind of tired of everyone saying like, oh my God, you got magic powers. Like, how do you do this stuff? And I'm like, it's a computer program. Like, I just want to talk to you about the code. I was like way more interested in like the nerdy side of like, it's such a cool program. And I never got to talk about it. So that's why in like my TED Talks, I revealed, I'm also like super happy. I revealed how I programmed all of my magic tricks because I thought that was the exciting part. So now it's, and then I got into art because that was like, oh wow, there's like all of these different applications of how you could use technology to portray, whether you're trying to, communicate an idea or communicate a visual aesthetic or communicate something digital. It felt back when I started, there weren't as many mediums that allowed you to do that. Like, digital art wasn't really what it is now, for sure, right? Like we've had this conversation. So it was very exciting to be able to like, build art installations that would challenge the idea of how do you display digital art, instead of just using like a canvas, using like LEDs or screens or augmented reality or VR, or in this case, a video game.
I mean, you've just mentioned that we worked on it during the pandemic. Yeah, because everything moved online, all galleries and museums were closed. And yeah, I invited you to create a digital solo show for the gallery. And we've done the solo show with Manuel Rosner together, and it wasn't multiplayer. I mean, people really enjoyed it, but they were alone in his solo show. And then you had the idea, well, let's build something where people can just, oh, and that's me, the curator.
As you.
And then, yeah, I said, well, let's just maybe you build, you know, the gallery space, and then you display your sort of net art, what we see right now. But what you've actually built was a full virtual world with 3 cities, a train, the Berghain in there. People could choose avatars. This is your actually solo show, but then also the whole virtual world is also your solo show. Yeah. I mean, yeah, how did it happen that it became way bigger than intended? What was the idea behind making it way bigger than just displaying your work in an online build?
Hey, can I ask Anika's avatar? Was that where you left last time, or how does it work? If you log in
I'm a character
right now?
in the game. I'm a character in the game.
Oh, yeah. So you would move around in the game doing stuff.
Yeah, so like the story of the game is that there's a guy in the game who's like one of my friends. He's like, hey, we're going to an exhibition. Let's get dressed. And I kind of like, I guess Anika's to ask Anika's question as well. Like during COVID, we couldn't do the things that were so normal to us. And we're trying to adjust in this new realm where we couldn't even go outside. And at the time, it was like, for me, it was so exciting because everyone was playing Animal Crossing and everyone was stuck at home. And it was so easy. Like for the first time ever, I could sit on the phone with my friends on FaceTime for 2-3 hours a day. And it was like really nice because no one had anything better to do. There was no like, and it wasn't that it was better, but they didn't have the anxiety of, oh, I should be doing something else, which maybe necessarily wasn't what they do. They had like the like fear of missing out anxiety.
Yeah.
So during that time, I was like, well, I want to make this video game where I take someone on a night out, they go on an exhibition. And when they do that, I thought, all right, well, the start of the game is like very familiar. You know, you've just pulled up to this gallery. I think we can go outside. You pulled up to this gallery, which, you know, looks like the gallery. And then there's a guy on the door who's like, do you have a ticket? Like, are you on the guest list? You know, because everyone's been to an event before where they maybe haven't been on the guest list and they're trying to get in and they have that moment. And then you meet Anika and she talks about the exhibition and she says, oh, can you find my face mask for me? And so the goal of the game was that I wanted now everyone to go around all of these net art pieces. So like all of these little pieces here are actually artworks. So Coins to Speculation is telling you how much money you would have made if you invested $100 in Bitcoin 7 years ago. And it tells you how much that would now be worth. But the point of doing this is that now people are going around the art and they're looking at the works, but they're trying to find this face mask. And so I kind of get to gamify this experience. And what the player don't know, and to answer Anika's question, is that, you know, I knew that when I made the game, I'd be able to get a load of my friends to play it for, you know, 3 to 6 hours, no problem. And I thought it was really fun, like the idea of taking people on a little bit of a journey and just as a social experiment to see what happens. And there's this kind of scoreboard at the top that shows when you log into the game, it takes your Instagram username and shows how many followers you have. So there's a scoreboard of all the famous people that played the game. And I thought it was a fun social experiment. You think of art shows and now it's like, if you know, you'd be like, oh, who's famous at this art exhibition? But with this technology, it's capable of just actually just showing it in real time. Like now, when you play the new version of the game, players that log in with their Web3 wallet, their ENS domain names showed in the game. But what I found interesting was that in the NFT space, when people buy NFTs, you see who buys it, and everyone talks on Twitter about like, oh my God, like Franksy just sweeps the floor on this collection. And it was interesting to see how the idea I was trying to show in this was like the social validation of art and being involved in it, and how it's now panned out in NFTs. And now it's like, now you can publicly see the buyers and sellers, which is just really, really fun. So to answer Anika's question, I built the game as a social experiment as to, you know, what can technology enable the people to do inside a shared space, and how do they value the shared space based on the people that are in it, and also gamifying it. So like this piece here, which is Depressed Twitter, this is a piece that I made years ago, which is probably one of the first pieces I built. It just takes like tweets, uses an AI and takes tweets that people are writing about being depressed. So like if someone says, oh, I'm depressed right now and hits tweet, it will appear in this room. So everyone can sit in here and read these together and relate, share them together.
And there's also face mask, right?
Yeah. There's the face mask. But what's cool about this is there's a competition going on here. See, whoever spends the most amount of time inside that room, it says how many seconds they spend there, their name comes up on the scoreboard. And I thought it was an interesting idea to like create a gamified experience where you're kind of forcing people in a way to experience art, right? For the reward of like social clout, which is similar to the kind of like whitelist thing we have in NFTs. You know how people will do things for a whitelist spot. I thought it was really interesting how people engaging in that for art. This was oh, sorry, Anika, I've gone on a massive digression. Now I'm just talking about the show. Hope you don't mind.
Oh, good. Can you bring me the face mask that we see?
Yeah, I'm going to bring you the
face mask. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because people had to fulfill tasks and then they could unlock stuff. Yeah.
For healthcare workers. So then,
yeah,
so this,
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, no. So like, this is where like I took it away from being an exhibition and was like, well, it's one thing to make a virtual game that's an exhibition, but another thing to be like, what if the game is the exhibition and it's like the exhibition is like a mini game inside the exhibition. And so what the exhibition really is about, you know, it's like little themes from my life. There's little stories in there. It goes along my belief, which is that the future is going to be that video games will replace movies. Like if you look at games like Hideo Kojima's games, Metal Gear Solid or Death Stranding, like, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars spent on these games. The actors are playing out the roles of the characters. There's cinematic scores. They're breathtakingly, you know, they're like movies, but you play them. And I think the narrative of like decentralized metaverses whereby the players and communities will work together to guide the story of the game and to steer it in the right direction. I think that's the future, because I think the video game is kind of the best form of storytelling, in my opinion. Like we've had like radio, we had art, then we had photography, then we had music, we had radio, we had television, we had movies, and now video games have come along. And I think it's like, you know, the whole new frontier. Oh, the metaverse is coming, and there's been loads of people who have said we're not there yet. And I think you know, Vitalik Buterin has said the metaverse isn't there yet. I think the metaverse is there. I think we're already in the metaverse. I think we started to explore what the metaverse was when we had the internet, because it's an alternate version of reality that's online and everything we're doing is stored on there. And I think the next iteration of the internet is Web3. It's I think Ethereum, but blockchain technology. And so the metaverse will really just be a space whereby apps, technology, games, artworks, everything is transacting on the same protocol layer. And so everything is interoperable, everything is connected, everything is shareable. It's one language to bind them all. It sounds like Lord of the Rings, you know, the one ring to rule them all. So I think the metaverse that we all think is coming is this future graphical user interface of the current blockchain. It's like, how do we visualize this stuff? And because, you know, if you look at every tech company on the planet, one of their big, there's two big missions. It's augmented reality, like heads-up display glasses or contact lenses, and AI. And so in a world where we need to walk around and be able to, you know, go up to a building or go into a shop and all of this stuff to just appear on our piece of hardware and our glasses, we need a technology layer that allows anyone to build, anyone to connect, anyone to integrate. And at the moment, the only thing that really does that is like Ethereum, or, you know, some of the other blockchains, I guess, also do it. But I would argue that Ethereum was kind of the first to really push that.
But I mean, the interesting part was what I think you really managed to do already. I mean, exactly 2 years ago, what we just figured out, that we launched a Web.game, the very first sort of like version of it, exactly 2 years ago. I mean, there were 4,000 people, I guess, in the game on the opening night, no? And I mean, yeah, there's the Berkheim. So people really enjoyed coming together in a virtual world. And I think that's also what the metaverse is about, no? Coming together in a digital space and spending time together like you would do in real life. and not just being, I don't know, in front of Twitter or so. I mean, because there were people from all over the world who haven't met in quite a while or had never met in person, and they stood in a queue in front of Berghain for a minute and were speaking with each other and trying to figure out how to get into Berghain in a virtual world. And a couple of days later, I mean, Tom, what we didn't consider was that people would actually think there's a way in. So, and the gatekeeper says, no, not tonight. And then people went back to the avatar store and chose different avatars. And at some point, people texted me and were like, well, which avatar do I have to choose that I get into Berghain? And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. You can't get in.
Yeah, it was the first thing I built, wasn't it, Anika? The first thing I built was the Berghain queue, because all I wanted to do was recreate the experience of queuing for a nightclub. Because for me, queuing outside a nightclub, let's say in my hometown in London, if you're queuing in a nightclub in Soho, you would bump into everyone in the queue. And that's when the night would begin. And there'd be this kind of like, you know, it's like, oh, I'll see you inside, like who's here? So I think there's a real like nostalgia in recreating experiences that you have in the real world, but kind of gamifying them in a fun way and giving them something different. So yeah, now my friend Gigolo is going to take us to another club.
I love this notion of nostalgia by recreating a physical life experience in the game world.
I personally think that like there's two sides to it, right? There's the platform side, there's the kind of open world side to it of the metaverse, of this open space. But at the same time, I think there's always going to be a desire for people to immerse themselves in an experience or collaborate with others in a world that is dissimilar from theirs. And it brings us down to this whole thing of like, okay, this is a kind of crazy concept, but like, I really like Hideo Kojima games because Hideo Kojima is this like artistic, he's written like, if you read his book about his experiences and how he creates his games, it's like he's making a decision on what he thinks is a really great artistic idea. And I think there's a real merit. You think about musicians and great film directors, there's always kind of one person that's making the decisions and has the confidence to go and say, this is what I think looks and feels good from an artistic point of view. And I think when it comes to art, there's different approaches, but when it comes to making video games, I think it's just different to say making a metaverse. I would call our game more of a meta game, like using metaverse ideals and principles in a gaming world. I think that there's like a real power behind the artistic vision of a project. But what I find interesting about like say what we're doing is that the goal is to like decentralize. So the experiment is, what happens when you do allow people to control it and to steer it, and the community takes it and turns it into something different. So I think that we don't really know what the future is in terms of like how we manage these shared spaces. I mean, look at what happened with Microsoft, banning any NFTs to be used with their, on Minecraft, and NFT world getting kind of shut down overnight. We just don't know what the kind of rule set is for interoperability in metaverses, but I think it's very interesting to explore the how should it make you feel? Like how should you feel when you play a metaverse game, when you log in with your character, when there's lore from other video games inside your game? How does it all connect together? And I think that's going to be a core driver of bringing the traditional Web 2 gamers into the Web3 space.
Yeah, I also like the idea that you mentioned. I also like the idea that you mentioned, like metaverse. It's not something that just happened very recently, that we have been exploring metaverse or virtual world since we have the internet already. And I think that's very true. A lot of people who opposed or very critical about the whole idea of metaverse. Like I just saw a tweet today asking, so how much time do you actually spend in metaverse every day? I mean, to be honest, I don't spend much time playing any of these games or immerse myself in the VR. every day, but in a way it's exploring your digital life, your digital self, and it happens when we have the internet technology already.
Yeah. The metaverse is I think it's been around for a while. I really do. And people say all the time with this whole digital ownership thing, and it's kind of NFTs and art has definitely been like, you know, the champion of the technology. But like we have spent the last 20, 30 years, you know, creating and doing things on the internet, and there being no way to store or to transfer or to verify ownership of things. I think that's really powerful, especially when it comes to video games and metaverses. You know, I think the whole conversation of like social identity, do you own your Instagram account? Do you own your, because like social media is obviously a huge part of our lives. Like it's a fundamental part of society. Like the way that humans interact with each other now, it hangs in the balance of social media, but we don't own it. We don't own social media. We own our identity in real life. When we buy our clothes, we own them. When we style our hair, we own that. When we express our ideas, we own that. But we don't own our social media accounts. We can only curate it. And I find that fascinating. I think it's, you know, as we move forward, I hope that more technologies come out where NFTs and blockchain technology gives us the power to have our own, you know, digital, social digital sovereignty, I guess. But we need metaverse technology to evolve to like enable that to happen, right? Like the metaverse needs to say like, oh, you can use your NFT, that's your identity, or you can use this is your, you know, give me your wallet, what do you have, who are you, and use that data to create the experience, not to collect data just for themselves. It's a data battle, I guess. But the data battle's over now, right? The AI companies have all the data they need. They don't need any more data. They've already got enough. They've done their job. Big data is won. Now it's like, okay, you can have your data back.
I would also like to know like how you both, Anika and Tom, how do you envision metaverse to be in 5 to 10 years? I know it's like a very long time span, and we're seeing different metaverse platforms competing with each other or partnering with each other. And this topic of interoperability is also been discussed a lot. So I'm curious, how do you both see this?
Tom, any idea? 5 to 10 years, that's a very long time.
I think AR is going to be here in 5 to 10 years for sure. I don't think what's so difficult is that like the technology we have right now, the computing power we have right now is so good that it's like the VR AR thing is obviously kind of very doable, but I think it's going to take some time. I think I mean look at blockchain, right? Bitcoin 2014, Ethereum, Ethereum 2014, and like, you know, the big ICO pump 2017 era. It's taken like 10 years, more than 10 years for this technology to really hit, and NFTs, like, you know, it's taken a long time. Digital art has taken what, 40, 50 years to finally have value or to be able to be valued. So I think metaverse is a bit of a while away, if I'm being honest. I think 5 to 10 years though, we should start seeing more interoperability. I think I love what I'm seeing with like Instagram, for example, and these apps enabling people to use NFTs from, you know, other things. I think we're going to see the games adopt this a little bit, and ownership. I think the gaming economy market is going to blow up because, you know, never before have we had people being able to sell their gaming items and assets that they collect in game or earn in game. I think that's going to create a crazy economy. But I honestly just don't know. I think AI is probably the scarier, you know, with DALL-E 2, like creating these incredible images. It's very hard to know, but, you know, Meta are releasing their Oculus soon, and we'll have a good idea of that. But I think what will happen is the second that the technology becomes in popular, like the mainstream, the second Oculus is really there in mainstream, which it already kind of is growing, and PlayStation VR 2 is coming out, and you know, Meta are making these AR glasses as well. Ray-Ban, like as soon as this stuff is ready, all of these video games are immediately just going to launch on there. It's going to be a very quick process. So I think it's more interesting to look at what's happening with the video games. And I think, I think there's a lot to work out with the metaverse, virtual land. I think it's a complicated system. I think virtual land works inside a video game where the land has got some meaning or purpose inside the video game, but to have land in order to access the metaverse, I think is not going to be fully sustainable. I don't have, I'm not really entirely sure how the metaverse will work, because it's probably going to be one that wins based on history, right? One search engine, one social network, one video platform. It's probably going to be one metaverse, and the debate will be everyone will use that. And look at Unreal, right? Epic Games that make Fortnite. One could argue that Unreal Engine is also its own metaverse, because there are all of these games that are built on it, and that enables Unreal to create a metaverse where all of their games work on it. It's the same with, so I think, the metaverse is a platform. I think maybe it will just end up being Ethereum. That will just be the metaverse.